So, all right, sorry, I was helping a student just a minute ago, so I was a couple minutes late getting myself set up here. So if I seem a little out of sorts, it's because I was just helping a student like a couple minutes ago. Okay, so welcome in everybody. We got people in Zoom, we got people on YouTube. Looking ahead at factoring. So we're going to continue with our factoring, and if there's any questions, feel free to ask. Feel free to feel free to say what you any kind of questions or concerns or anything that you have along the way, because this gets a little bit confusing, right? So we're factoring trinomials, and what we're doing when we're factoring trinomials is the same thing as before. We're trying to take something that's written as a sum or difference, and we are trying to write it as a product, okay? So that's our goal, right? We want to be able to write the thing as a product. Now, here's what I'll say. All the trinomial problems are probably going to look a little bit hard at first, but you get to the point where some of these will be easy. There'll be some of the easiest ones in the chapter. The hard ones in this that are trinomials are also the hardest. So trinomial factoring can be both the easiest problems to factor and the hardest ones to factor, okay? So that's the thing. It's both the easiest problems and the hardest problems to go through. So let's kind of work our way through a problem. We'll see how the multiplication works, and then we'll work backwards to and because that's essentially what factoring is, right? So let's take a look. So say we've got x plus 5 times x plus 3. X plus 5 times x plus 3. So remember how we multiply these, right? We're going to multiply this out. X squared plus 3x plus 5x plus 15. Right? So we're just doing the FOIL. And then this will simplify to x squared plus 8x plus 15, right? So that's just our polynomial multiplication, okay? Whoops, I've got a typo in here. Okay, so x plus 5, x plus 3, x squared plus 3x plus 5x plus 15. We've got x squared plus 8x plus 15. So that's the polynomial multiplication that we learned in the previous chapter. Okay, so now we're trying to go backwards. We're trying to start with this and work our way backwards to this where we can write it as a product. Okay, so what we want to notice here, there's a lot of clues that we can pick up for our trinomial. And when we pick up those clues from the trinomial, then it's going to help narrow down the possibilities. So a lot of what happens with trinomial factoring is you're essentially doing what's called guess and check, which is you're going to look at the clues and there's a lot of possibilities for the factoring. There's an infinite number. You're going to try to narrow it down to just like one or two, and then you check it to see if it's the right one. That's your basic guess and check method. There are other techniques you can use to do this, and that's fine, but they all kind of amount to the same thing, right? So this is like I've mentioned before. Some people, you've learned to draw a big X on your paper. That's fine. If it's literally the same thing. Like when you walk through and you say what you're doing, when you do it horizontally versus when you do it with a big X on your page, you're literally doing the same exact thing. Does it help some people to draw that big X on their page? It seems to. I'm not sure why it's helpful, but it seems to help some people. So if that's you, then good. Do that, right? So go ahead and do that. It just depends on what method works for you, right? But we want to notice a couple clues here. Notice the L part, the last part of our trinomial, the constant. Where does that come from? That comes from the L part of our FOIL, right? So one of the things we're going to do is we're going to look at the sign here. What does that tell me? If I got a positive number from my last part of the trinomial, what does that tell me? Well, how can I get a positive when I multiply two numbers together? I get a positive times a positive, or a negative times a negative, right? If the signs were different, if this was a -5 over here and a +3, I'd get -15. Or the other way around. If it was a +5 and a -3, I'd get a -15 down here. So the fact that this is a +15 indicates to me that the two signs inside of my factoring are the same sign. Now, it could be -5 and -3. That would give me +15. Or it could be +5 and +3. That could give me +15. I don't know which one it is, right, yet. I mean, we kind of do because we cheated and we have the factored form. But in general, you would just have this. So we're looking for the clue of this sign right here is telling me these signs up here must be the same, right? Because this is our whole goal, is to figure out what this is. So, okay, must be a plus and a plus. Well, then we go over here. How would I get +8x? That comes from the outer and the inner combined. Well, if these were both minuses, could I get a +8x? No, we'd get a negative in the middle, right? So you look here and we go, okay, that tells me my two signs here are the same. My two signs here are the same. And then when we look here at this sign, it tells us they both must be plus. So you kind of, what you do is you're going to fill this in stages. So pretend we don't already know the answer. We know it's going to be a plus and a plus inside of these, right? So here's the key to doing these. I see a lot of students, they try to do these problems in their head and they wait, and I'll see them staring and they're just trying to do the whole problem. You should write down whatever you can. Even if the only thing you can write down is parentheses, write those down. Okay, the parentheses are going to be helpful to you. Just, it seems silly, but write down every single piece. Because what I've seen is students try to do this in their head, and they can't. But when I push them to say, just do the next step, just do the next step, next thing they know, they're done. Okay, so you look at the clues, and you go, okay, I've got some parentheses. I know my signs are going to be plus and plus. Now, here's the thing. There's two types of trinomial problems. The easy ones, or what you will probably find easy after you've done some homework problems, is that this first term, the x squared term, the coefficient on that being a 1 makes these problems a lot easier. The x squared becomes an x and an x, right? So we're going to put in x and x. Okay, so see how we're starting to fill in the pieces? X squared can only break down as x and x. That makes these problems significantly easier. Excuse me. We're going to have problems later where it's harder because we'll have like 12x squared, and then you don't know. Does it break down as 6x and 2x? Is it 4x and 3x? Is it 12x and x? Like, what is the breakdown? And we're not sure. Okay, so then we're looking and we go, okay, well, where does this 15 come from? That's these two numbers multiplied together, because that's the L part of the FOIL, right? Right, we're multiplying these together. And then where does the middle term come from? That's where we add these terms together. So 5 plus 3. So we get x plus 5, x plus 3. Okay. So what you're looking for is what multiplies to 15 and what adds to 8 is essentially what we're asking for this part of the question, right? What multiplies to 15 and what adds to 8? Okay. It's not that easy when this x squared has a different coefficient on it, but for now, that makes these problems a little bit easier. So then you can go through a bunch of these. Let's look at how they look over here. See how you've got the different versions. You've got where your lead coefficient is a 1, and then the ones where it's not. These are the ones where it's a little bit harder. So let's do one of these. Okay, x squared minus 11x plus 30. So let's work through that one. x squared minus 11x plus 30. Okay, x squared minus 11x plus 30. So what do? I'm going to write the parentheses down. Now, when you write the parentheses down, give yourself enough room to add some stuff in, right? Give yourself some space to write things in there. But we're going to go, okay, well, I know x squared's got to break down as x and x. So I'm going to put those in there. Okay, we've got an x and an x in there. So it's going to end up looking like this. Okay, now I look at those signs. Okay. This plus tells me when I do the L part of my FOIL, I'm getting a positive. So either I have two negatives in here or two positives. Well, look at this middle term. That's a negative, meaning I must get two negatives. Because if I had two positive terms that I was adding together for my inner and my outer for the FOIL, how would I get a negative? You can't. So it's going to be x minus and x minus. Okay, and now I have to start thinking, okay, do I know numbers that multiply to 30 and add to 11? Right, there's lots of ways to get 30. 30 and 1, 10 and 3, 6 and 5. Can any of those get us an 11? Yeah, it looks like the 6 and 5 would, right? So 6 and 5. Okay, and there we have the factoring. And notice if I multiply this out, like, always check your work when you're multiplying these. Let's see. X squared minus 5x minus 6x gives us negative 11x, and then plus 30. There we go. So let's put it in here and see. Yep, there we go. And so here's what I mean about the x. So see what they did? They make an x, and they put the 30 up here and the negative 11 down here, and they say, are there things that multiply to 30 and add to negative 11? For some students, this is helpful to write it that way. I don't see why, because we did the same exact thing here. We just did it horizontally. But seriously, if this helps you organize your work to draw that big x on there, or if you've ever learned this before, go ahead and do it. This room I'm in is getting super hot. I'm starting to sweat a little. Okay, so use that big X if you need to. All right, if it helps you. Okay, let's see if the next ones look any different. Here's one. Let's see. I'm going to try to get to a different one. This is just going to be x plus 2, x plus 1. There's a specific type of problem I'm looking for here. Let me see if I can find it. Here we go. Okay, so something like this. X squared plus x minus 6. Okay, so we want to go through and factor this one. X squared plus x minus 6. X squared plus x minus 6. X squared plus x minus 6. Okay, I got it right. Okay, so let's think our way through this one. So I'm going to go, I need parentheses. So I'm putting parentheses in there. All right, and then I go, well, x squared can only break down one way. So that's going to be x and x. So I put my x's in the parentheses. And now this is a little different. Look, the constant term here, the L part of my FOIL, I got a negative number this time. So what does that mean? That means that we're going to, the only way you can get a negative in a multiplication is if the signs are different. So one was a plus and one was a minus. So that tells us that down here we're going to get an x plus and an x minus. Now here we have to be careful about the order in which we write our factors, because notice up here when the signs are the same, if I had written this as x plus 3 and x plus 5, it'd still be right. Or if I wrote this one as x minus 5, x minus 6, it would still be right. But down here, we have to make sure we get the right number after the sign, right? If I get the wrong number after the plus, then it's still wrong, right? It's close to being right, but close to being right in mathematics is wrong, right? So when we figure out our numbers, we got to get the right ones with the right signs. So I think, okay, I want something that adds to 1 and multiplies to -6. So there's not that many choices. You've got 6 and 1. You've got 3 and 2. So it looks like in this case we're going to want plus 3 minus 2, right? Plus 3 minus 2 gives us 1, and -3 times 2 gives us -6. So x plus 3, x minus 2. Okay. So that one's factored. So we get x plus 3, x minus 2. Submit. And there we go, we got it. So you can see they've got the x here, and they're going through the whole thing. So if you want to model your work after the way they're showing these solutions, go for it. Right? Notice they're doing the check, they're multiplying it out, and they're getting, oops, I'm off screen. They're getting what they started with, so then they know they did it correctly. Okay, so that's really all there is to these kinds of problems. It's pretty straightforward. And most of you will get to the point where these basic ones, you can just kind of look at them and eyeball them and go, okay, well, I know it's going to be x, and it's going to be what, a plus and a minus. So we're going to have what, 4 and 2. So I want -2 in the middle, so it's going to be -4 plus 2. So -4 plus 2, right? Does everyone see how I'm doing that? You're breaking down 8. What are things that multiply to 8 and add to -2? Hit submit, and there we go. Okay. All right. Any questions on that? So I don't know if I should move on yet or not. Do you have so in chat, please let me know. Are you comfortable with this, or do you need to see some more examples? Are you ready for me to move on to the harder ones, or are you comfortable with this? Just throw it in chat right there. Don't be afraid, but let me know if you're good. Anybody need to see more examples? Okay, then I'm interpreting your silence as we're good, that you don't need to see more examples. Okay. Okay, then let's go to the more challenging problems. That's where, so see how the lead coefficient is not a 1 anymore? That's going to make it, okay, thanks, William. I appreciate the feedback. So if anyone has questions, let me know. Feel free to ask, throw them in the chat there, and then we'll be good. So right here, what we've got is we've got a new problem where that coefficient on the x squared is it's not 1 anymore, where that was always real easy. The x squared, you always know how it's going to break down, an x times an x. Now that we have a number here, it's a little different. However, we kind of lucked out because since this is a prime number, it's still going to be pretty straightforward. Where we get into difficulty is where this coefficient right here has lots of factors. That's going to be, so this will complicate things a little bit, but these aren't super hard yet. So let me write this one down. 5x squared plus 37x plus 14. So x squared plus, was it 37x plus 14? Okay, so now things get a little bit more complicated. Remember before I was saying we want things that multiply to 14 and add to 37? We don't get to, it's not that easy anymore because this 5 is in here and it is affecting the outer, the O part of your FOIL, the outer part of your multiplication. So it's not as simple as multiply to this, add to this. Okay? And I think you'll see that when they show the solution. It's not quite as easy. However, it's not super hard yet either because we do know how 5x squared has to break down. Since 5 is a prime, 5x squared has to break down as 5x and x. And then we play our sign clue game. Okay, this tells us the signs are the same. This means they must both be plus. So I'm going to go plus, plus. Okay, now I have to figure out what goes in here. But again, it's not what multiplies to 14 and adds to 37 because this 5 is going to mess things up. So we still want things that multiply to 14. So it's either 14 and 1 or 7 and 2. I'm guessing it's not 7 and 2. Okay. So, you know, when you do these a long time, you can start to see where the factors are going to fall in there. So I think we're going to have the 7 here and the 2 here. So let's see if we try it that way. So you go 7 and 2. So see how it's a guess and check? You fill in as much of the factoring as you can with clues from the problem. And then the last little bit, you just do your guess. And then you check it to see if it's right. So I just did a guess and check. Let's see if it's, well, I'm doing the check part right now. So this will be 5x squared plus 35x plus 2x plus 14 5x squared plus 37x plus 14. Yeah, that seems right. So it looks like I got the factoring right, but see how it's not quite as easy? So let's try it over here. Was it 5x plus 2 and then x plus 7? Got it right. See how they don't have that big x there anymore? Because it's not that simple. Multiply to this number and add to this number. It's more complicated than that now. You have to think about the combinations of things. So, you know, they're kind of just, it's basically, the more of these problems that you do, the better you're going to be able to look at a problem and tell the right combinations of things. But it takes some experience. It takes some practice and doing a bunch of these problems before they start to make sense. Okay. So it just takes a little practice. Let's see what the next one looks like. Okay, next one is similar, where it's a 5 in front. I think I want to do one where it's a little bit more complicated. Is it like these? No, these are still... Oh, they're still giving us primes. Okay, well, let's try this one. So 3x squared minus 16x plus 5. They want this factored completely. So 3x squared minus 16 plus 5. Minus 15x plus 5. I messed that up, didn't I? What is it? Minus 16x plus 5. Okay, 3x squared minus 16x plus 5. 3x squared minus 16x plus 5. Okay, so in this case, there's only a few options because notice that both of the terms that we have to break down are both prime, meaning there's not a whole lot of options here. So this problem's actually not bad at all. So let's see. I'm going to put my parentheses in there. You write those before you even really get started. Write those parentheses down. Okay, 3x squared. That can only break down as 3x and x. Okay. And 5 can only break down as 5 and 1. So we're looking at the signs. Now look what we got. We got a plus here and a minus here. So just ask yourself for a second, what are the signs down here? Do you know what they're supposed to be? From reading these, it should be a minus and a minus because this one says they're the same, and this one says it should be a minus. So it should be 3x minus and x minus. Okay. 3x squared minus 16x plus 5. 3x squared minus 16x plus 5. So we have this. Now the good news is 5 only has one factor, so it's either going to be a 1 here and a 5 here, or a 5 here and a 1 here. So worst case scenario, we're going to try two things, but hopefully we can get it on the first try. Okay, so we can kind of eyeball it. If you think about it, if I put the 5 here, then when the 3 multiplies the 5, I'm going to get a 15, and then a 1 in here gives us a 1. With a 15 and a 1, I can get a 16, right? Whereas if you put the 5 over here, then you end up with a 5 and a 3. That's not going to get us to 16. If you can't see what I just described yet, that's okay. It just means you're going to have to write out more of the guess and checks because you can't quite see them in your head. But that's okay. It literally just comes with practice. When you've done dozens and dozens of these problems, you'll be really good at them. But when you're just seeing me introduce them to you for the first time, you're not going to be as good at them. So let's see. I think we're going to try the 5 here and the 1 here. And then let's see how that comes out. So we've got 3x squared minus 15x minus x plus 5. Yep, that's going to give us the right thing, right? Right, that's going to give us the right thing. So 3x minus 1, x minus 5. 3x minus 1, x minus 5. Submit the answer. It tells us we're good. And again, it's just you try till you see, they even say here, guess and check only factors where the first terms multiply to 3x squared. Right, so 3x and x, they put it in just like we did, and then you put in the 1 and the 5, and then you get your final answer. So possibly sometimes you'll try it one way, it won't quite work. You'll make a little adjustment, and then it works the second time. Okay. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention. Let's see. A couple things I was going to mention and then forgot because I was helping that student right before class. I never even opened that discussion. So, oh, actually, we could do that now. This factoring help should be open. Oops, it logged me out. So here's an area where you can post questions about factoring, right? So this is one of those ones, it's graded. It's an easy 10 points. So just come in here and talk about what helped you for factoring, or something that made it easy for you, or a question that you have that you don't understand. It's an easy 10 points. Just come put that in there. And let me set this for, let's see, you'll get 10 points. It's graded. Let's set it for, today's the 9th. No. November. Let's go 14th. No. Let's go the 21st. Done. And then go back to modules. So make sure you do that. That's a pretty easy 10 points to get. Right? So it's just a discussion. Go in there, leave a relevant comment. You'll get some points for that. And then, let's see, what was the other thing I was going to say? Oh, something that everyone should be aware of. So I know that in this class, you're kind of, uh-oh. What just happened? Okay, sorry, my streaming software disappeared for a minute. So I know that you're all kind of balancing two schedules, right? Because you've got your El Camino schedule and then you've got your Ventura College schedule, and those don't always line up perfectly. So it's always important, even if you're just going to Ventura College, it's always important to know what the calendar is, the academic calendar, but especially if you're going to two different schools, it's really helpful. So on the main Ventura College webpage, you've got academic calendar. So you come here and click this. And then you scroll down, and then you find the instructional calendar. And then that clues you into things like you won't be confused on Thursday. See, on Thursday, November 11th, there's no school at Ventura College. I don't know what it's like at El Camino, but there's no classes at Ventura College because it's Veterans Day. Oh, where did my other screen go? I lost. That was weird that a bunch of my screens disappeared. November 11th, there's no school. Okay? So don't show up on November 11th or be wondering why is there no stream today. It's because the 11th is a holiday, so there won't be a stream that day, okay? And then also the 25th is a holiday because that's Thanksgiving. So what you're going to notice is it seems like the end of the class is like a long ways away, right? It's like a month away. That's forever, right? Well, it's not that far away because we don't have class on 2 of those Thursdays, and most people get a little bit around Thanksgiving. You're probably going to have other responsibilities. Some of you will have to work more. Some of you will be spending time with family. Whatever it is that you have planned, that's 2 Thursdays we don't meet. So we meet, let's see, today and then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We meet 7 times, including today, left in the class. So we are, fairly quickly approaching the end of the course. And then when the semester started, they didn't have the final exam schedule posted. So I want to talk about that a little bit. So the way the final exam schedule works is somewhat strict, and we have to follow a set of guidelines, right? So in that same place that has the academic calendar, they now have the final exam schedule. At Ventura College, they used to post the final exam schedule before the semester would begin. But lately, they've been doing it in the middle of the semester. So it's out now, so we can see when our final will be. So let's see. We are what? We're a Tuesday, Thursday, 10 o'clock class. So Tuesday, Thursday at 10. So that's right here. So the way you would read this is that your final exam is on the 14th, and that window closes at 12:15. I will set up a final exam. We will talk more about it when that time approaches, but your final exam is going to be due at 12:15 on this day. I cannot accept work after that, right? It even says down here, student request for early or late examinations. Students requesting early or late exams may obtain a petition from the instructor or division office. Approved petitions are to be filed in the office of the division dean prior to the exam date. No exceptions. That is a school policy. That is not my policy. That is a school policy. And it's in place because they want to make sure that we're treating everyone appropriately. Like, it's nice sometimes if a student wants to turn in something late or we make an exception or something. But in some sense, in certain circumstances, that could be viewed as unfair to the other students, right? A student could say, well, I came to the right time and I took the final. Why is he letting her take it at a different time or something like that? And that's a valid complaint, right? Why should a different student be allowed to take it at a different time? So the school, it's a policy to make sure that we're, no one's being treated unfairly or that some people are getting advantages or something like that. So the exam has to be completed by the end of class. I'm not supposed to accept any work after that time. Otherwise, it leads to those kinds of issues. So I will set up the exam. The exam will probably be available before that day. So you could even take it a day early if you wanted, but it has to be completed, like turned in, completed by the time that our final exam ends at 12:15. So that's midday. That's like just after noon, right? So you got to make sure you do that. That's on the 14th. And like I say, we'll talk more about it towards the end of the semester, but I just want you to be aware of that. It's a little more important in a class when we're on ground, which we'll have more on ground classes in the spring, that we actually all have to be in the classroom at this time conducting a test. It's a little different because we're online, okay? Also, those of you who are planning to be on campus next semester, remember there is a vaccine mandate. So I would take care of that now rather than on the first day of school where they're going to get flooded with people trying to get on campus and show that they're vaccinated and stuff, because it's a whole process you have to go through. You have to submit your vaccine card, and then it has to get approved, and then you can get on campus. But I don't think it'll take like a minute. That first day of school is going to be a mess. So if you have your vaccine card, I would submit it through the MyVCCCD app like now, because if you submit it now, it still might take a few days for them to approve it, but then you're all approved for it in the spring, right? I'm imagining, since we are running the intermediate algebra for El Camino in the spring, I'm imagining that some of you will want that. You'll probably be taking that class, right? And I don't know, I'm not teaching it, so I don't know if it's online or on ground or what the situation is, but just be aware of that information. I wanted to point that out for you, okay? All right, and during that exam, I will have Zoom. I generally have Zoom open during the final exam times. That way, if anyone has any kind of weird concern or question, or you're panicking or anything like that, you can just come in and talk to me during the Zoom meeting, and we'll talk about it. Okay? Let's see. So we got a little bit of time left. I can do a few more examples. I just wanted to point that out. So is there any questions on any of that? If so, let me know. Right. Okay. Here's one that's a little bit harder. 4x squared minus 8x minus 21. Why is this one harder? Because there's no primes in it, right? I don't know how to break down 4x squared. I have options. It could be 4x and x, or it could be 2x and 2x. I have options about how to break down 21. It could be 21 and 1. It could be 7 and 3. These are the ones that get complicated because there are lots of possibilities. There are lots of combinations that would work. So let's work through this one, right? Like I say, these are kind of the most challenging from the chapter. So 4x squared minus 8x minus 21. Get that right? Okay, so in this case, always start with the pieces that you know. So if one of your numbers is prime, then start with that one because you know how it's going to break down, right? In this case, we don't have any primes. So I'm going to start with the signs because this is indicating to me my signs are different. Since this one's a negative, that means I have one plus and one minus. Okay, I've got a plus and a minus. All right, and now you're just going to do your best to guess and check. Just kind of look at them, and sometimes, like some people get to where they can crunch the number in their heads after they've done many of these problems, but just kind of look at it and try to think, okay, is there some way? And off the top of my head, I'm actually not seeing it, so I'm just going to try one and see how close I get. Let's try 2x and 2x, and then with the 7, let's try a 7 and 3. Okay, so that's my guess and check. Now I'm going to see how it comes out. So if I multiply them, I get 4x squared. So 4x squared minus 14x plus 6x minus 21. Oh, that one actually works. I didn't think I was going to get this one right. I thought I was actually getting a bad guess, but it worked. So my guess happened to work, right? We get 4x squared minus 14x plus 6x minus 21. That's the original problem. Negative 14x plus 6x is negative 8x. So that works. 2x plus 3, 2x minus 7. Oh, let's see. What did I do wrong? Oh, I got my signs wrong. So see, that's a thing too that's easy to do, is when you're copying it over, you mess it up. There we go. And they just go through, they just looked at the you see how it's a guess and check? Look at all these possibilities between, you know, having 4x and an x, or having 2x and 2x, and then 21 can be 7 and 3. It can be 21 and 1. So there's lots of different possibilities, but only one of them will work. So that's why you sometimes have to do your guess and check. I guessed here. it happened to be right. If it was wrong, then at least I would know, okay, that's not the right one. And I'd rearrange the terms, multiply it out again, and see what works. Okay? Okay? So that's really all there is to the trinomials. It just takes practice. So I would encourage you, as soon as you get a chance, go work on the homework for these and practice them as much as you can. Once you've done a few of them, you're going to go, okay, I get the sense of how this works. I get how these work out, and you'll be good with it. But it takes a little bit of that experience. Most students go, oh, trinomials are easy once you work on them a little bit, but they're hard until you've worked on them, right? Until you get that experience with them. Okay? So that's how you do the trinomials. Next time we'll move ahead and we'll get, more, we'll probably finish up most of the factoring next time. And then we will get into, oh, this is about to end. That's what I want though, right here. So we'll probably finish up factoring next time. I'll talk about special factoring, which isn't too much stuff. And then we'll get into factoring strategy. And then the time after that, we'll look at solving equations by factoring. So you've got something, you factor it, you use that to solve an equation. So far, we've just been factoring for the sake of factoring because you're new at factoring. So we're actually going to use factoring for something, which is to solve equations. And then when we get to Chapter 7, you're going to use factoring for other reasons. You'll actually use factoring to simplify these rational expressions. So another use for factoring. So by the time the course ends, you'll have seen two major reasons to factor, and there are more, but those are two really big ones that are important. So that's kind of where we're going. Next time, which is a week from today, we'll finish up factoring. The time after that, we'll get into solving equations. And then at that point, we just have one more chapter to go to finish out the course. Okay? So I'm going to shut down the YouTube stream. Anyone who wants to come talk to me, please jump into the Zoom meeting and talk to me about whatever you want. I welcome you to do that. Any questions or concerns, anything like that, please come talk to me. And you're all doing, most of you, almost all of you actually, are doing quite well in the course. I know people start to get tired. Just keep up the good work. Keep working strong and finish strong so you pass this class and you don't have to worry about it anymore. Okay, thanks.